All right, let's dive into something that pretty much shapes our entire world. Nationalism. It feels like it's been around forever, right? Ancient, permanent. But what if I told you that the whole idea of living in a country is actually really, really new? Let's dig in and see what's going on there.
So to get us started, let me ask you a really simple but kind of huge question. Who are you? No, really, think about it for a second. What is it that defines you? What are the groups, the communities that make you, well, you?
Is it your family, the neighborhood you grew up in, maybe your faith, or is it your nationality? For most of us today, that last one, our country, is a massive part of our identity. But here's the kicker. It wasn't always like that, not even close.
Get this. The entire political system we live in, this whole world of separate countries, it's only about 200 years old. Yeah, you heard that right, 200. The idea of a nation is actually younger than the steam engine. That is one of the most dramatic and fastest shifts in all of human history.
Okay, so let's start with that core idea. The fact that this world of ours, carved up into nations, is a totally modern invention. It's not some timeless, ancient thing.
And I know, that can be a tough idea to wrap your head around, because we're just so used to looking at maps with all those neat, clean borders. But for most of human history, those lines and the loyalties that go with them, they just weren't there. So, what was there instead? All right, let's take a little trip back in time. Imagine a world with no flags, no national anthems, no passports. What did that world actually look like before we invented nations? This right here really puts that change into sharp focus. So, back in 1700, if you asked someone who they were, they might have said, I'm a subject of the king, or I'm a Catholic, or maybe just, I'm from this village right here. Fast forward to 1900, and that answer completely changes. Now it's, I am French, or I am American. You see that? Loyalty shifted from a person, or a religion, or a tiny little town to a huge abstract idea, the nation. So what on earth caused such a massive change?
The short answer? Revolution. A whole series of absolutely world-shaking events came along and just shattered the old system. They created this huge need for a totally new way of organizing people.
So in the late 1700s, this firestorm of revolutions just tears across the Atlantic. You've got the American colonies demanding their independence, you've got the French literally overthrowing their king, and you've got the enslaved people of Haiti rising up and fighting for their own freedom. The old rulebook was being completely thrown out. Now, these revolutions didn't just pop up out of nowhere. They were fueled by these powerful new Enlightenment ideas about things like liberty and the rights of ordinary people. And as those old traditional loyalties, to kings and to a single religion, as they started to crumble, it created this vacuum, this void. People needed a new, big, powerful idea to rally around, to unite them. And that idea was the nation. Which, of course, leads to a really fascinating question. If nations aren't these ancient natural things, then how in the world were they built? Seriously, how do you convince millions of strangers, people who will never ever meet each other, that they all share some deep, common identity?
Well, the political scientist Benedict Anderson had a brilliant way of putting it. He called a nation an imagined political community. Now, imagined doesn't mean it's fake or make-believe, not at all. It just means that the community is built in our minds. You feel a real connection to your fellow citizens, right? Even though you know you'll never personally meet most of them. It's like this whole new kind of social glue.
And nationalism, well, that's the engine that actually builds and maintains these imagined communities. And this is the key part. It's an ideology. It's a system of beliefs that says, hey, humanity is naturally divided up into these groups called nations, and each one of those nations deserves to have its own government, its own sovereignty.
So how do you do it? Well, there's kind of a toolkit for building a nation. You have to actively construct this shared identity. You create a shared history, sometimes cherry-picking the good parts, of course. You standardize a language so everyone can understand each other. You promote national symbols like flags and anthems. And a huge piece of the puzzle, as Benedict Anderson pointed out, was the rise of mass printing. Think about it. For the first time, newspapers and books let millions of people read the exact same stories in the exact same language at the exact same time. It created this shared mind space. It let people imagine they were all part of the same team. And of course, a crucial part of this whole process is defining who's on the team and who isn't.
So, what happened when this powerful new idea was unleashed on the world? Well, the impact was absolutely massive and, honestly, deeply contradictory. I mean, on the one hand, nationalism can be this incredible force for unity. Just think about places like 19th century Italy or Germany. You had people from dozens of tiny separate states who were brought together into one single country, all based on a shared language and culture. But there's always a but, isn't there? The very act of defining who's in the group automatically defines who is out of the group.
And that dark side, it's absolutely undeniable. That us versus them thinking, when it's pushed to the extreme, was a major cause of the unbelievable violence of the 20th century. We're talking about everything from the world wars to so many other horrific conflicts and acts of ethnic cleansing.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started. Remember that question, who are you? We've just seen how this big idea, the nation, was basically invented to answer that very question for millions and millions of people. So now, let's turn that question back to you here in the 21st century.
Just think about it for a second. Our world is more connected than ever before, right? But our national identities are still incredibly powerful forces. So what do we make of that? Is nationalism a positive thing, a source of community and pride that we should celebrate? Or is it an outdated, maybe even dangerous idea that just divides us? The history we've just walked through doesn't give us any easy answers, but it sure does force us to ask the question,